Impression in the game you get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and attack it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it hard.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Hello, and you're very welcome to Treaty Talk. It is episode 326. My own name is Tom Clancy, and I'm joined this week by John Keogh. John, it's championship, so we've subbed you in for Matt. We've given Matt a break this week. You played nothing in the league, but here you are.
That's me all out. That's me all out. Money around.
Very good. Yeah. How's things with yourself anyway? All good?
All good, Tom. Now, yeah, looking forward to another great weekend of GA action. Now it's fairly action packed, even with the Limerick senior hurling team not around this weekend, but geez, there's a ton of games about. So starting with the minors tonight.
Yeah, starting with the minors, and we obviously had the 20s on Wednesday night with the minor footballers. We've the ladies football in action as well in the Munster Championship as well, the B Championship that is. So plenty to get stuck into so over the next 55 to 60 minutes, and I think no better place, John, to start than I suppose the talking points from everyone's lips this week in terms of the Munster Hurling Championship. And I said to Matt a few weeks ago when the under-20s drew away to Waterford, any day you're not beaten in the Munster Championship is probably a good day, no matter who you are, really. You know, if you come away with something, there's probably something to be happy about. I'm probably a lot more positive than a lot of the Limerick faithful I've spoke to in the last few days. A point away to Tipperary. This is an improved Tipperary team, I think we'll all agree. The fact the other game was a draw as well, no ground lost to anyone. So am I better to be glass half full or half empty here a few days after the draw in Thurles?
It's a tricky one, Tom. Like if you just look, Limerick fans are so used to winning at this stage that maybe a lot of them have forgotten how long it took up to 2013 and from 2013 to 2018 where Limerick were starred of success. Like I think it's something like Limerick have beaten Tipperary once in the Munster Championship at Semple Stadium since 1973, and that was in 2014. It was 2 late points from Shane Dowling.
I actually just saw that clip. I should have had it to hand. I saw it on the Limerick supporters group. I think Liam O'Brien, a good friend of the podcast here, had that stat. There's been maybe 5 or 6 draws in Thurles, but Limerick's record in Thurles against Tip and maybe in general in Thurles, it ain't hectic. No matter how good teams we've had it through the 90s, noughties, and definitely in recent times. It isn't. We don't have a great record there. It is not an easy place for Limerick teams to go and win. You mentioned that victory there. I stopped you in your tracks. It was Tom Ryan and Shane Dowling, wasn't it? Yeah, late scores.
Yeah, last 2 points to win it. Tom Ryan's a famous one from the left wing. Dowling got a great score as well. And yeah, you don't win easy in Thurles. Limerick teams have never won easy in Thurles, and there was, never against Tipperary. They've had great wins over different things. You go back to 2020, but victories over Waterford and Clare in the COVID affected championship, but. Yeah, so from that point of view, Thomas, you have to look at it as a point gained. Were Limerick at their very, very best? No, absolutely not. And no one would say they were. And we'll probably get into the nitty gritty of it as we're talking on. But overall, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you come out of Thurles with a point rather than 0. And you've got to be positive about it because Tip are improving, no question of that. But I still think Limerick far from their best, and that's one thing I think we can all agree. Injury hit Limerick. There was plenty of players, as we'll talk about, making their first starts for Limerick in the Munster Championship. That people will be surprised that was their first start in the Munster Championship, likes of Colin Coughlin, likes of Barry Murphy. Like people remember Barry Murphy when he first came into the Limerick panel, and certainly in 2018 when he scored a very important goal that
against
Limerick beat Tipperary in the first round, which eventually helped Limerick on their way to end 45 years of hurt with an All-Ireland Championship at the end of it. So there's low that alone, and Limerick clearly, like you know, they don't have a fully fit squad to pick from at the moment. I think that's fair to say. And a lot of these hurlers, Tom, a lot of these players, you know, were injured during the league. Ones that started on last Sunday, you know, you only have to look at Nicky, and we'll definitely be talking about Nicky, but like the full back line, which everyone was worried about maybe going into it, like Mike Casey completely proven. But Barry Murphy was maybe a worry. He had a great league, converted into a corner back in this league. He played, you know, kind of a sitting role for Doon throughout last year's championship at centre back, or maybe just scanning across the full back line, and I was exceptional at it. So Limerick obviously saw something what Derek McGrath unearthed, maybe a Barry Murphy, but you know, all over the team, like Colin Coughlin probably had the most in the full back line of performances in the league. Dermot Burns didn't play a full league. Kyle Hayes got injured a couple of times in the league. Cian Lynch and Adam English in midfield probably had longer periods playing in the league. Certainly Tom Morrissey, Kyle Hayes, as I've mentioned, and Garrett Hegarty in the half forward line have played little to no hurling in the league. There are a couple of performances, maybe not full games for most. So coming into the game, and that's without Dan Morrissey, that's without Dara O'Donovan, without Declan Hannon, without Seamus Flanagan. I know Dara and Dan were on the bench, you know. So plenty of Cal O'Neill, of course, crying off injured before the game as well. So coming out of Thurles with all that against you in a game you feel you should have won, you know, and we may or may not talk about refereeing decisions in a while, but you know, in a dubious free, we'll call it, going Tipperary's way. And I'm not talking about the hand pass. You know, I think referees seem to be clamping down on that over the shoulder type of palming away rather than a clear hand, you know. So that's an interpretation from a referee. You know, you asked the question to John Kiley in the aftermath of the game about the 3 throws given against Limerick and compared to 1 against Tipperary. When look, the perception out there, Tom, is that Limerick throw the ball every time they hand pass it or attempt to hand pass. That's very much not the case. But I mean, the perception.
Can I interrupt you there on that? Right, I agree with you, and I know we could be accused of being biased on this platform, but the reason I would say Limerick do not throw the ball as much as people think is, why would you throw the ball if you do not have to? So if you're breaking up the field and you have the space, you have the time to make a hand pass, why would you risk basically giving away a point? We saw Owen Connolly, we saw Darren McCarthy. They're capable of scoring from anywhere in the field, really. Why would you throw the ball? You know, and I understand the way the rule is written that there has to be a clear striking action. So if the referee doesn't see that, he's perfectly entitled. And I think, to be fair, the one against William O'Donoghue, right at the end, which basically ends up in the equalising point, you know, if you really slow it down, the referee doesn't have that advantage. So he didn't see a clear striking action. He just saw a hand coming up and the ball flying away from it. I can see why he gave it, and I think maybe you were touching on it, maybe there was a throw there, but I would always counter anyone who's saying, oh, there was 100 throws in a match or 200 throws from both teams, whether it's Limerick or not, or anyone. Why would any player throw the ball when they don't need to? You know, there's sometimes the most common throw I think it happens is when a fella gets shoulder to the ground, he's on the deck, and the ball comes flying out of the bottom of the ruck. There's nearly always, I would say, that's throw. Now, unless he's a very good palm from playing handball or something, the ball going to go 8 or 10 feet in the air when you're nearly prone on the floor. And sometimes the ball is definitely thrown. You mentioned John Kiley. I asked him, you know, in the huddle after with a lot of journalists about the throws. It was 3 throws to 1. I counted as in the second half, 3 against Limerick. I think 2 of them led to points. 1 was hit wide, I think, by Darren McCarthy. 1 against Colin Coughlin, 1 against Aidan O'Connor and William O'Donoghue, as we mentioned at the end. There was 1 against Tipperary. I'm not sure who the Tipperary was. One of the McGraths, I think, was being, and Limerick pointed the free as well. But I was asking John Kiley about that, and he actually referenced in the build-up to Tipperary's second goal, he believed it was a throw. I think it was the penultimate pass. And when you do watch it back, I think there probably is. But again, like, to be fair to Thomas Walsh, he is trying to sprint. It was very good. It was well transitioned. Very different. It's very well transitioned by Tipperary. Good move and good fit. Very good finish as well to boot. So look, I won't knock it back. No. But
I'd argue where my argument comes in here, it's not about the throws. I actually think William O'Donoghue was fouled as he attempted
in around his shoulder, is it?
Yeah. And just 30 seconds previous time, Limerick were ordered a free that put them a point ahead.
Aidan O'Connor.
He was fouled Aidan O'Connor for the exact same thing. So look, I will go on this. The argument from Tipperary side and every other team that plays against Limerick, how the cheek of them to give out about throws when they're throwing the ball. The perception again becomes reality that Limerick throw the ball every time they hand pass it. I think we've a great view in the press box. We saw the absolute crazy reaction from the Tipperary fans when that free was awarded against them for throwing, but they were calling every Limerick hand pass a throw.
Yeah.
So look, that's part of the fun and games, Tom. And
just to throw this one away,
pardon,
the last comment I'm making this, I was at the 20s game on Wednesday, and we'll come to the actual context of that in a minute when we look at it. But I was in the gantry in the Gaelic grounds as we have access to us occasionally. The Cork management, which includes certain Donlow, Cusack and subs and everything, every time Limerick can pass the ball, there was somebody in a red jersey or a red top roaring for it. So I think it's now infecting. It's actually affecting the Limerick underage teams as well.
Yeah,
they were pinned a few times. There is a perception almost, if you're looking, I tried to look from outside in at this in terms of, there's a perception that the Limerick teams are almost being coached to do this, rather than they're being coached to do it quickly, to execute the skill,
which is exactly what way they're being coached.
Yeah. So exactly, the perception is almost like that Limerick are throwing the ball around and training.
And you know full well, anyone outside Limerick that will see this podcast will be going, they're at it again, defending the and look, absolutely, we can be accused. But I did hear a couple of Tipperary journalists after the game that were down the same huddle as us, laughing and joking, saying, how in God's name can Limerick possibly give out about the Tipperary second goal when they're throwing the ball? So it's not coming just from fans, it's coming from
but two wrongs doesn't make a right,
it absolutely doesn't. But and to finish on this, we've gone off on one about this, but it's a legit issue that comes up every game now. But I think, like, the whole thing about I'd have a bigger issue with Limerick being drawn up for some of the frees that are given away against Limerick. And there was one blatant free time. Now I'm not one, and like people say when I was playing, I used to give referees an awful doing, which there's an argument on that, fine. But since this side of it, you're refereeing yourself, and when you're talking to referees constantly, you have to have another side of understanding where from my point of view anyway, the referee can't see everything, number one. So a few decisions like that not going your way. Like you said about the Tipperary second goal, it appears to me as well. I think we watched it very quickly back after the goal happened, and I think we could identify there was maybe a throw. And having watched it since, it seems to me still that there wasn't a clear hand passing action. But we're not going to harp on that. But it does seem to me that the things that will bother you as a supporter more so, you're going to argue for everything. We want every free to go. So the ref gives us that thing. It's not up to the referee to give you anything. Right? This is always the argument I try and find with people. There was the most blatant one I saw all game, and it did come against him. It was a blatant foul on Diarmaid Burns out by the touchline in front of us in the Ardon Arena.
Push/shoulder into the back.
Yeah, and it ended up in a Tipperary free. It ended up in a Tipperary free. Darren McCarthy did score. Yeah. And things like that really get to me when there's a linesman there and the referee wasn't that far away from it either. More so than, a 50-50 call and a throw. Where you want to see anything in refereeing is consistency. So if there was 4 fouls given for throws in the first half, or in the second half, sorry, are you going to tell me that the same instances didn't happen in the first half where no free was given? Why were there none?
I think there was only one one or none in the first half. Yeah,
and that's where the questionable things go. I'm not having to go, Thomas. I actually feel outside of the couple of decisions we're talking about, that not about the 50-50 throws, something like the one about the push on Diarmaid Burns I'm talking about. That's where you kind of go, that's a definite free and the referee has made an error. That's where you can call an error. 50-50 calls and throws for the speed they're done at by every team now, not just Limerick. I think it's a very difficult one for the referee to call. The only thing, a little question on that is, were there absolutely no questionable hand passes in the first half? I doubt it. Of course there were, and there were certainly more in the second half as well.
It is very difficult for a ref to pull what he would perceive to be all the throws in the game, but I think... but I'd be surprised if there was none in the first half. I suppose if he doesn't see it, he can't give it. But maybe it was weighing heavily on him that there was so many, shouts for throws that eventually there must be one or two. And he was well placed for all of them. So look, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying he's wrong. Yeah, I'm not saying he's wrong either.
One of the best referees around, Tom. He's a ref that probably later on in the year is in line for an All-Ireland final. He's due. Johnny Murphy doing last year's, and a number of referees.
You could certainly see him in the Munster final if Waterford aren't involved.
Absolutely.
He's down that road.
Yeah. But look, we'll move away from that.
That's it. Just to move through the Limerick team and I suppose what we thought. The Nicky Quaid news last Friday. It had been it had been kind of peeped to me just before the team was announced that this was happening. And was I surprised, given that he's missed 2 championship games in 15 seasons? I probably wasn't too surprised. By all accounts, he did not have surgery. I've heard mixed messages on this. I believe he didn't have surgery. They put a program in place to I suppose regenerate his knee as best as possible. Now, look, long term, I suppose only Nicky and the specialists involved will know, will that have further impact? But we can never question this man's dedication to play for Limerick. He actually made his debut for Limerick outfield, as we know, in the year of the strike, and has missed 2 games since. And I tell you, if you want to know how long ago the strike was, 2010 was the year. The Limerick Tunnel, the day he made his debut was the day that the Limerick Tunnel opened, basically. So more or less, it was that week the tunnel.
The longevity of Nicky. It's unbelievable. Doesn't come close to it, Tom. You know, the second we heard cruciate ligament back, September, October, whenever it was.
It was actually even more recent. It was in the middle of November. It happened.
In the middle of November, it happened. You just feel it's 5 months. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You automatically rule that player out because we all know cruciate ligaments. The one thing I did when I did hear the news, I thought the same. I said, "There's no way if surgery had happened that a player can recover in that time because there's so much recovery needed." So I was wondering. Look, we're not going to know the ins and outs of what's going on in that Limerick panel. That's clear to see. As John Kiley mentioned to us after the game, with the 62 people involved,
it's wives,
girlfriends, partners, everything else. The 62 people involved in the Limerick team and everything else outside of that. For that news not to be broke, it just shows that the camaraderie, the unity, the sense of purpose within that group, and the extended group outside of that with partners and everything else is phenomenal. On Nicky himself, look, Nicky will go down as well as a lot of this Limerick team, if not all, over the last 7-8 years, as one of the greatest goalkeepers, one of the players in his position of all time. There isn't an argument to be had in that. Nicky's importance, and it's nothing to do with Shane Dowling, Jason Gillan, or Conor Hanley-Clark, the other goalies on the Limerick panel. Certainly throughout the league, is nothing on them. It's just, you could see from the first puck out, the pinpoint accuracy of the puck outs. I'd certainly argue after 3 weeks of training is what Nicky has. Certainly isn't as sharp as he'd like to be. There's no possible way playing goals he could be as sharp as he would like to be. You know, I think as well that, I think John Kiley alluded to it as well, that as a goalkeeper with that type of injury, they're running. The length of running, certainly during a match, whatever about training wise, certainly isn't the amount of work put into the legs isn't going to be the same, and can certainly be managed from that point of view. But yeah, to see him back when that was announced Friday and said you got wind of it, I was flabbergasted when I saw the team. And I suppose I shouldn't have been really.
Because Twitter, I know not everyone that listens to this is on Twitter, but Twitter went into meltdown. People from all counties saying like he's back, and it was obviously the reference to our Lord Savior Jesus Christ resurrecting on the Sunday. And
it was Good Friday. The team was announced, and Easter Sunday the game happening. It's
brilliant. Yeah,
it led to a lot of memes and led to a lot of good banter online. But yeah, if we're just focused on Nicky as a player, what a boost that group of players that, you know, and you said it a few minutes ago, the dedication that doesn't surprise anyone. But to see that 5 months after suffering a cruciate ligament injury, and the interesting thing was, from our point, we should have known better. Maybe, you know, talking to the management after the game, talking to people around, no one was ruling Nicky out, Tom. You know, Nicky wasn't ever ruled out by John Kiley from my memory in the amount of times he spoke to media. So maybe we shouldn't have been surprised.
Some of the interviews, I can't think who said it, very early in the year, they were even John. I'd say it was John himself, basically saying, like, our squad, and it included Nicky. He's there. He was never. When that's even been named. Absolutely. And also, the man I'd fear for now, and I think I have the name right anyway, is the effing goalkeeper, Danny O'Leary, because as we know, Nicky plays outfield, so there could be jeopardy there now. I don't think we'll see Nicky outfield for F.
Come September, he might be all right, Tom. You wouldn't know with Nicky. It's a valid point. It's a valid point. I think again, you alluded to something a minute ago as well about Nicky's long-term prospects, but maybe to use a common phrase with the Michael Jordan documentary, the last dance type of thing here, where maybe it's this, I'm going bullheaded for this year. I'll get the operation if I need to get the operation down the line. We'll put that program in place and go from there. We're speculating, of course.
Absolutely,
but you know, to have Nicky back and in for next weekend's game against Waterford, to have Nicky back and again a couple of weeks of training and more work gone in, you know, you would expect, you know, an even better performance again from Nicky. So definitely hurling wise, of course he isn't up to full speed. There's no question. There were a couple of incidents, just fumbled balls, which you just don't see from Nicky. Thankfully, from Limerick's end, nothing came from it. Outside of that, I've already mentioned the performance of the full back line, Tom. That Barry Murphy was outstanding in his first championship start. Mike Casey gave a performance from the ages at full back, you know, back to his very best, I'd argue. And Barry Nash, of course,
the lazy counter argument, John, and I'm not subscribing to this all, is that John McGrath got 2-1. Now, John McGrath, like the goals, Limerick were cut open further out the field, and that's why it came. And I don't think
defenders drawn, and then
John McGrath have 5. Did John McGrath have 5 possessions in the game? I know he made.
I don't think so.
He had 4 anyway. That's all I can remember really, and he scored 2-1. In fairness to him, he missed the shot early on as well. But like,
huge, brilliant output from John McGrath. But that, I don't subscribe to that counter argument.
No. But I'm just saying, like, but the full back line were very good. The full back line were very good for Limerick, especially
under a lot of pressure. Certainly in the last, you have to look it up to half time. You know, Tipperary scored 6 points in a row, couple of long range frees from O'Connelly, and a few points from play, and one from free, I think, from Darren McCarthy as well. So the run was on for Tipperary then, like, and you know, it was a lead, a substantial lead, a few points lead. You know, obviously Limerick did have the advantage. It was more of a swirling breeze, but it was blowing down into that end, into the declining end, I think it is. And you know, and Limerick maybe didn't take full advantage, but you know, certainly, I think one of the worries going into the game, wrongly, of course, but sure, there's so much talk goes on, may have been around that full backline. Barry Murphy untested, you know, Munster Championship level in that position. Mike Casey's been in and out over the last couple of years due to injury, so many injuries in the
even this season. He's
exactly come off in so many games again, like players I mentioned earlier. You know, have had limited game time, so you're wondering if they're up to speed. Barry Nash certainly looked up to speed. I thought he was exceptional from a defensive point of view. Barry's defensive work doesn't get enough credit at times. A couple of when Limerick were under pressure in that first half, Barry 50-50. Well, I'd say 70-30, maybe 65-35 deliveries going in the favour of the Tipperary player. Barry was the one coming out with possession, certainly twice. I saw in the last 10 minutes of that first half. You know, so really, really impressive performance there. You know, you're not going to say Dan Marcy and John Finn are going to struggle to get back into that full back line, but John Kyle has always been a player. If you have that if you have that jersey, you know it's yours to keep. Like so, moving into the half back line, I wasn't overly surprised to see Will O'Donoghue at 6. You know, there was suggestions maybe that he'd stay in midfield with Kyle being so good during the league at 6. It didn't surprise me because Kyle is so versatile. That where you're going to get the best out of Kyle. Well, I think one of Limerick's biggest issues in the league wasn't that half forward line because there was no consistency. There was a different line. I think every time Limerick played, Aidan O'Connor maybe arguably was probably the best half forward Limerick had during the league and the most.
Well, he's certainly one of the more permanent players in that
and one of the more consistent scorers as well outside of the last 2 games against Wexford and
he was Limerick's top scorer in the league. All told, I'm pretty sure. From playing and everything else. So that'll tell you how much he played as well and how much he contributed. Yeah,
you know. So if you're going through that line, I thought Will O'Donoghue was really, certainly in the second half, maybe more so. The ball ball was kept away from probably in the first half. Tipperary were using the wings maybe a bit more. Yeah. But in the second half, O'Donoghue, I mean, I thought was outstanding. Colin Coughlin for his first start as well. There's a perception out there with Colin that he's not the quickest in the world. Again, I think that was put to bed on Sunday. I think it's a lazy thing, Tom.
Yeah. No, and I thought he played quite well. He set up a couple of scores. He scored one himself as well, and has that. I was going to say to you, do you think he has that confidence now because he's played so much in the league? He's captain of Fitzgibbon team this year. You know, he probably feels part of it now. I'm not saying he didn't already, but certainly,
I know what you're
now.
saying.
Do you know what I mean? He certainly feels part of that real inner circle now that I am.
I think for Colin, you know, to get that championship start was massive. You know, you're talking
very patient.
He's not to be. A lot of players wouldn't have held on that long, Tom. You know,
and the same goes for Barry Murphy. I mean, Barry Murphy waiting 7 years for a start. You know, I think he was off the panel briefly for a while as well. But Collins made his debut in the 2021 semi-final, All-Ireland semi-final against Waterford.
Played in the final.
Played a bit in the final as well. Played once the following season, I think once the year after, and maybe once or twice last year as well. Like,
It's tough.
That's
And
patient now,
given
and
the
you're trying to dislodge. He was trying to dislodge Kyle Hayes, for God's
Yeah.
sake, at left wing back, or someone else. He was waiting for
Declan Hannon at centre back, Dermot Burns at right wing back.
yeah.
Will
He was
O'Donoghue,
waiting for
Darragh
something to
Donoghue
fall his way,
midfield.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it has fallen his way. So I'd say I can only imagine his confidence at that level will come up a huge notch if he's selected in the team for Waterford. We don't know what inner selections, what like it was suggested to me this week. Again, maybe not like trusting Colin as of yet. Certainly, John Kiley trusts Colin Cockney. He wouldn't be there otherwise, So that's the argument I always try to use with when people have, and there's always selections, always a huge talking point. People saying that Dan Marcy come back in to wing back like he did many years. I think Dan Marcy is nailed on full back if Dan Marcy is fit, despite anyone else's performance.
If we're going to see him, Nicky Quaid will be directly behind him, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's fair. So from Colin's point of view, if he does get the nod against Waterford, he was blown up for a throw. A couple of things didn't go his way from a point of view of catching the ball, which certainly Colin is one of the best fielders in that panel. Dropped a couple of balls. I think that might have been nerves as well, Tom. But he got a lovely score. I think he held his line very well. I mean, Alan Tynan was.
He set up a nice few attacks as well in that first half.
He set up Shane O'Brien's goal. He gave a glorious ball in for Shane O'Brien's goal that hasn't been talked about at all, and an absolutely inch perfect delivery for a player on the move like O'Brien was. He was able to take it on the half turn, and he was gone from Michael Breen, and that pass has to be pinpoint. So I think Colin.
And I have the clip here from GFA, so let's have a look at this. This is the second goal. We'll come to Adam English in a second.
Great fetch from O'Donoghue, and laid it off to Colin Coughlin. Perfect pass in towards Shane O'Brien, looking for the second goal of the game. Shane O'Brien adds to the goal scored by Adam English, and Limerick have laid a marker down early in the second period. 1-3 for O'Brien.
It's my field, says the bull. He's threatening it all day, Dave.
Yeah, nice little finish there. Yeah, but that's a lovely ball, and I think Dave McIntyre, the commentator, says it there with Coughlin's delivery. Pinpoint. Now we've still a plenty. Lovely catch by Donoghue off to Coughlin. Simple old game, John, isn't it?
When it comes off like that, it is, Tom. Yeah. So on Colin's performance, I think he's done enough to start against Waterford. He'll want to improve himself. You know Colin better than me, but he has huge standards for what he does and his output when he plays games. So you mentioned it, Tom. His confidence can only build from that performance. So hopefully, he gets another chance to show what he can do. Dermot Burns on the other side, typical Dermot Burns performance. I don't think hasn't played a full league. He's not at the fullness of his powers yet. I think that's fair to say. But again, going forward, Dermot Burns scoring some outrageous frees from this. Is one lovely score from play as well. You head into midfield. You mentioned Adam English, and Cian Lynch. I thought Cian Lynch, one of his best games for Limerick in a couple of years. I think Cian has struggled with injuries and form over the last 2 years. Certainly, injuries have really, really held him back. He looks injury free. Certainly got on a ton of ball in the opening 20 minutes in particular, and in the last 20 minutes, and that's where you want Cian. The middle part of the game takes care of itself at times. So Cian now with the added responsibility of being full-time captain of the squad, thought he led the team very well. Adam English, 1-3 scored the goal. We'll get onto the goal in a minute. But his overall performance, Tom, there's things to work on for Adam at inter-county level. He doesn't have the time and space to try maybe some of the little flicks that come off at club level that have come off for him at underage level. He learned that quickly. Some of his finishing, he's rushing shots where he doesn't need to rush shots, where he has more time than he realizes. That'll all come in time. Yeah. But if I'm talking about that, and he scored 1-3 from play in his first championship start as well,
Not too bad. Yeah, we'll take it.
The level that Adam has set for himself, and that is an extremely high bar that he has already set for himself. Maybe not yet at intercounty senior standard, but he set it last week with 1-3 from midfield. I know it's a floating role he plays, more attack than defence, but there was one incident that was brought back from a free. Adam was fouled. He broke away from 3 tip defenders. He eventually hit the shot off his left wide. It was brought back for a free that Dermot Burns nailed. But that little glimpse for me, as well as the goal, the little flick for the goal, shows you what you get with Adam English when he's playing. And, the ceiling is so high for this guy, Tom, and it's just great to see him starting in the team.
Yeah, I think his year, the down year for Doon when they still were close to win or getting to the county final, he had to lead for that team. Still a very young player, had to lead them for taking frees, to lead them around the middle. They were down so many bodies, like, and if you're trying to look for positives from a year that they doing, they kind of the last 2 games by 19 points that year.
Yeah.
And I know, look, some people say club and county, they are different, of course, but Adam, while he was probably already on that trajectory, I'd say it probably accelerated him in terms of, really developing his game and being a leader in terms of, I don't think he'd be a leader in roaring and shouting, but a leader in terms of his actions. Let's have a look at the goal there, and we'll chat a bit more then. But his goal in the first half, and keep an eye out for this assist, of course, as we know from Aaron Gillan.
The ball's in the back of the net.
Got a bit of a scare last month when his hurl went missing after the game against Clare. O'Mara's that ball is played inside for Limerick's Adam English. And without a care in the world, he flicks it through the legs of Barry Hogan for the opening goal of the game.
Yeah, and watch it as it could be. Look at the movement from the Limerick forwards.
Lovely little sweep, Jan, isn't it?
It's outrageous, Tom. There's nothing worse than a goalkeeper. You'd say this safely playing in Ireland, obviously nowhere near that level. Where a guy's clean through and who hasn't risen the ball yet. You saw it over Quilligan and Gerard Hegarty a couple of years ago as well, or last year, whenever it was.
Same goals as well, yeah. Same
goals as well, actually.
End,
the town end terrace. And you go as a keeper, you go for it, and then oh, I'm caught here. I'm not going to get to the ball. You stop. And it made Adam English's mind up. Because you're in a ready position and your legs are wide open, the guy flicks it underneath. You can't have time to close. Same in soccer. Same. It's an outrageous finish. The pass is outrageous from Aaron Gillan.
It is.
He was blocked down. Absolutely not. It's a glorious.
No. Yeah. I actually called it. I think I called it straight away. I think a lot of people had to see the replay. I was like, oh, that's a great pass. And because maybe our angle, it didn't look at any bit like a block. And I know
we could see he was facing into us when he flicked it.
Lovely. Just turns his wrists enough to redirect it.
And ideally, probably overhit it as well, Aaron, for being critical, but it was into his path. And the finish is brilliant. And it just shows, Dave McIntyre said it in commentary as well there, it just shows the confidence in his own ability as well, Tom. So not to panic. He didn't pull. He didn't try to rise it and then with the chance of being blocked down or hooked. He saw the easiest available option was I'll flick it under his legs. Now, for me and you, us mere mortals, that's the last option that we would have.
Oh, I was watching and thinking, geez, if I tried that and I do a rematch,
exactly. God, it's going one way and it's going out
well, I'd say I'd be more likely to miss the ball, but that's a perfect. Even the players aren't used to stroking the ball in the ground, but obviously he's so comfortable with the ball, even just tipping around on the pitch. I'm sure just knew what he was doing. Knock it on 5 or 6 yards, and I'd say if he had time to think, he probably didn't have that much time to think. Even if it comes off the
instinct, Tom.
Exactly. But if it did come off the goalkeeper's legs, which is maybe what Mr. Hogan was trying to do, just block with his leg, he would have still had a second bite of the cherry, hopefully, to finish it.
So again, to finish on Adam, like from my view anyway, like the sky is the limit with him. He's got everything, he's got youth on his side as well. So you're talking about leadership. To me, and I'm open to correction, I think he could be a future Limerick captain as well. He leads by example, and I don't want to be putting too much on anyone's shoulders either, but we all know how talented Adam is. We all know what level he can get to. We all know we saw it every game for doing this year, and we've seen it at every age group at minor, up to 21s, up to 20s, and up to senior as well now. And we've seen it at Fitzgibbon Cup level. So the trajectory is only going one way with Adam English. And if you go into the half forward line, then I think it's fair to say with both Tom Marcy and Gerard Hegarty that the fact that they haven't played much league, has definitely hampered their performance. I thought Gerard had a good first half. Tom was very, very busy around the field, output in the second half. Tom got a score and Gerard got one in the first half. Output in the second half maybe wasn't where they'd want to be, and maybe that was reflected by the fact they were the 2 Limerick players that were called ashore by John Kiley in that second half. Kyle at centre forward. That was brilliant. Kyle Hayes is a talent, Tom. Saw him at centre back during the league. He was exceptional in the games he played there. Seen him at wing back for years. We've seen him at centre forward before. We've seen him at full forward before for Limerick. You run out of superlatives for Kyle Hayes' hurling ability. And popped up with a score as well. He
just some stats that they were given to me. Kyle Hayes, 2 points, wasn't it? I think he got. Was it 1? 2 points,
one in each half,
and set up 4 then either by passes or was foul, busy, so physically strong,
so good on the ball, so quick to get away from players,
Yep.
but his work rate chasing back, he caused so many turnovers. Himself and Keelich in that first 20 minutes. I'd love to see the full stats on turnovers by the two of them alone, because the two white helmets, they were so visible that they were in the mix every single time. Some of that this has gone unspoken maybe a bit. Some Tipperary came out with the ball a fair amount, but it took them so much work to get that ball out of defence at times in that first half. Maybe outside of the last 5 or 6 minutes where Limerick dropped off a bit in Tipperary, took that 6 scores in a row, but half forward line. Then you go in, to full forward line.
Well, David Reedy in that kind of roving role, and he got through a lot of work.
Role between. I thought it was one of David Reedy's quieter performances.
It was.
He just didn't go his way, and that can happen. We all know David Reedy's qualities, Tom. I mean, they're well versed at this stage. What he's brought to Limerick.
For some reason, with David Reedy, he's maybe because he didn't play in 2018 or it took him longer to get in. He's kind of like viewed by people as not. If you're naming a team, people are slow to think of him. But yet, in the last
management aren't. They're the ones that are watching what's going on.
Yeah. Last 10 or 15 championship matches, he's either started or been the first sub on nearly every single day. He's
no one's nailed on any team, Tom, because it all comes down to if a guy isn't playing well, that they don't, they're not going to hold on to that jersey. But David Reedy certainly has been one of the most consistent performers in the last 5 years, either off the bench when he's produced and when he's got starts, which has been more frequently in the last 2-3 years. Certainly, he's been exceptional. So that's what I'm saying. It was just a surprise to see him not reach that usual standard, but I'm sure again if he's picked for Waterford, you'll see a much more improved performance from him. Thought Aaron Gillan, we'll finish on Shane O'Brien with the 15. That Aaron Gillan got better as the game went on. I really did. The touch was maybe a bit off in the first half. Conditions, the heavy rain that was falling as well. But my God, was he a serious danger? And that's even excluding the assist for Adam English's goal.
I think he'd 3 points from play as well, which maybe kind of went a little bit under the radar.
8 overall,
because of the man beside him, we'll talk about in a second. And I think he 4 from 4 from the frees, so you can't.
He didn't miss a free.
You can't ask for much
more.
He
did 8 overall, 5 from 5 from the frees and 3 from play.
If my
memory is correct. And in very tricky conditions with those frees, they weren't easy frees. They weren't, the most difficult frees, and they weren't still have to be scored on. But I thought in the second half, he really played a great role in that full forward line. His touch had improved. He got the grips of the conditions, and Aaron's just so. I think we take for granted at times Aaron Gillan how good he is. So when things aren't maybe at the fullest of, again, like I said with Dermot Burns earlier, fullest of their powers, you kind of go, oh Jesus, what's going on here? But I thought in the second half he was fouled for a couple of the frees he scored himself. Touch was bang on the money. Looked a big danger. Couple of maybe, nearly goal chances, what I'd call them, where things nearly opened up for him. Or maybe it was fouled and maybe tapped over a point from play. So, I think Aaron will get better, and like Dermot and like David Reedy will get better as the championship goes. And then we come on to the Bull himself, Shane O'Brien. I mean, it's not his first championship start. He started, I think his first championship start was the Munster final.
Yeah, I think it's only his second championship start. Oh God, very experienced with 2.
Yeah, look. I mean, it's a clip that's been widely shared outside of the goal. I think it was there's 2 Tipperary men on him when he comes out and controls the ball brilliantly, takes it down. He's on his right side, turns back onto his left. We had a great view of it. He was on the edge of the scoring arc, for the football scoring arc, and just popped it over the bar. I think we've spoken, myself and you personally, outside of the podcast, and Matt and all of us would be at Limerick games and at different games over the years. You look at Shane O'Brien last year and the year before. I think he was averaging 1-4, 1-5 from play every game at club level with Kilmallock. Yeah. So to see that transform into intercounty level is the standard. The step up was so high, but it's not a surprise to see him producing like what he produced. That goal to me, he was gambling on the delivery. You could see from probably 60 yards out that delivery from Colin Coughlin was going to be pinpoint to the area where he was running, and that's the beauty of that. The 2 Limerick forwards start in the middle and then dovetail out. The 2 on the inside line.
It probably.
So I said it earlier. Sorry, just to finish the point. I said it earlier. He was on the half turn as he caught that ball. He knew exactly what he wanted to do, and he was away from Michael Breen. I don't think Michael Breen, who's oft criticised in Tipperary circles about his defensive, I don't think Michael Breen did a huge amount wrong there. It's just the ball was so good, he was able to read it, and he was on the half turn, he was gone. And you're not going to catch Shane O'Brien. He's deceptively quick. We saw that goal in the league against Galway, the same thing. He was gone. When he got the ball and turned, he was gone. And then as the finish then to to just to roof it net unstoppable.
Yeah, just that goal displays an awful lot of the skills that he has, and there probably are an awful lot of the skills that you would want in any forward. Like, he obviously had the strength to pull away from Breen, just to get it free. Did a pace then to pull away from him, get that time, catches it on the turn, as you say, because some other players would catch that and be heading basically straight away from goal, so they could only get a point or only pass it off. Because he, as you say, he's already half turned. Okay, Tipperary people I know are arguing he took 6 or 7 steps, but all's fair enough and more. Like, just
not going to get down the argument to steps now.
No. Like, he definitely he took more than the permissible 4, but he didn't take the allowable 8. That some people players get away with. So it's probably in between, which probably doesn't make it right either. But look, he turned his man onto the hurley, back into the hand, and even the angle you see it in the third replay from the net cam is pretty tight, and he just drills it, and no shred of doubt what he was doing. He wasn't thinking, am I going to get hooked? Will I need to bat it? Will I hit it low?
He knew he was
instinct again.
It comes back to that, Tom. Talent and instinct. The amount of work Shane would have put in over the years, obviously with his father Adrian, been Limerick S&C coach as well this year. Shane when he came through at Artscoil Reach was already on a serious path from a physical development point of view. His hurling was outstanding as well, and he's built for intercounty hurling. Tom, you said it. He has every attribute needed to be an intercounty star. He has
and he's a great nickname as well, John. Like,
the bull. Well, Darragh O'Donovan made him famous before. He was even known to any of those outside Limerick.
Now we'll wrap it up in the senior hurling in a minute or two. But just I was talking to someone about someone from our neighbours over in Clare about the nickname, and it kind of gives him this persona that thankfully he's fulfilling. Kind of give a bit like The Rock and
living up to his
other players. Like, it kind of but in fairness, like, he hadn't even made a 26 at that stage. He was only on the training panel really. But by God, as he stepped into those boots and filled it, and even last year, it was a bit of surprise that he got to start in that Munster final. But he has shown, but he was surprised that he started the Munster final, and then he was benched, or came in off the bench in the semi-final, and it went from Jesus, we're surprised now that he's starting. The people were surprised that he wasn't starting in the space of just 170-minute performance. He was so good in that Munster final. Again, a bit like Adam English, the trajectory is very, very positive, and
it's going to be a hard job, Tom, to get the jersey off Shane O'Brien and Adam English.
It is. Yeah, but what a duo to have up front now. Former hurler of the year Aaron Gillan, and then I suppose a man that, as we say, is improving, seems to be improving all the time, and has such an array of skills in his arsenal to unlock him. So, full back lines around the country, I'd say beware of what's coming.
Before we finish in this, Tom, a word as well for the 2 subs that did come on the Limerick team.
Yeah.
Peter Casey's return to action didn't get a huge amount of headlines, which, I'd say I'm only guessing at this.
51 weeks later.
And even at that, against the same opposition too. So from a mental standpoint, that the mental fortitude from Peter, we all know about the physical thing he had to overcome following that horror injury, and the fact that he came out from the Pearshik, the county final only a matter of months later, was phenomenal in itself. But to see him back, and Limerick are minding Peter Casey, no question of that. For as the season goes on, you'll see Peter Casey play more, I've no doubt about that, have more minutes on that team. But to see him come back and to see him look fairly sharp too, Tom, I think he won 1 free and certainly maybe set up a score. I'm open to correction on that. And Aidan O'Connor had a very, very fine impact in the game as well. Certainly fouled for a free. I know he was one of the ones that was blown up for a throw.
Yeah, well, he was fouled for what we thought was the winning free as well. And he did well.
Yeah, he was. Did very, very well. In the heat of the battle there, he didn't panic, Tom. He could have tried a stupid shot with players around him, but took the ball on, and did very well to win a free. That's a talent alone in itself. A lot of players wouldn't have had the capacity to win that free, but Aidan knew exactly what he was at. There was a little duck. He knew the hurley was going to come, and that's not his problem. That's the defender's problem. Good luck to him for it.
Absolutely, yeah. No, very briefly, John, the next day out is Waterford. Now, it's probably a little bit premature to be discussing this game at length, but an opportunity, I suppose, for Limerick to, Waterford are playing Clare this weekend. That's why I'm saying we're not sure where Waterford are at, but an opportunity for Limerick to, what we hope, I suppose, is get the win, have 3 points out of 4 on the road, and then I suppose what many perceive to be the big 2 in the group to come at home. So it will be a big game for Limerick to add to that total, and to have 3 points after 2 games would be, I think they'd be very happy with their work if they can come away from Walsh Park with a victory.
100%, Tom. Yeah, we don't know where Waterford fully are, but we do know they're 1B champions in the league, and you know,
That
I saw
winning
their,
feeling, all right, yeah, again.
yeah, and look, you'd expect them to be 1B champions coming out of that, given the array of talent they have. I looked at the team that was named for the Clare game earlier on, and number 22 on the Waterford panel was a fairly well-known name in Mr. Austin Gleeson. You know, going through that whole team, there's a solidity about that team, looking at it on paper anyway, certainly. You know, and plenty of ability up front, and plenty to come off the bench. So maybe Waterford, you know, the perception is they're the weakest team of the five. I think they'll give a rattle this weekend to Clare. You know, Peter Queally, you know, didn't take that job on, not knowing what he had in front of him players wise. You know, Limerick aren't going to have it easy down in Walsh Park. I think the last time they played down in Walsh Park was 2019, where they ran Waterford out the gate. I remember a goal from Garrod Hegarty. I was over in Madrid at the time watching it.
They win by 20 points or something in the end.
Yeah, it was a real hammering. I think Pádraig Fanny was the Waterford manager at the time, and it just didn't go well for Pádraig that year in charge, and Limerick blitzed him completely. Certainly don't see that happening next weekend. Limerick and Waterford, although Limerick have had the run of them in recent championship year, since the round robin came in, I think they're unbeaten against Waterford. Again, I'm open to correction on that. But I certainly remember a time when Waterford used to beat Limerick more often than not, back to John Milan, Paul Flynn, Ken McGrath's era, where Limerick had major struggles beating Waterford, you know. So I know we're talking about different times, but I think that the Limerick advantage is that they do have the week break, we'll say, without a match, and then the preparation week. And that Waterford have the game against Clare, where they're going to go blood and thunder for. You know, and maybe pick up a few injuries. Hopefully, from their point of view, they won't be thinking that going into the Limerick game. But yeah, I was certainly looking. I didn't see you. I saw bits and pieces of him during the league. Stephen Bennett, as per usual, was at his highest level. You know, possible Desi Hutchison inside. One of the interesting ones for me so far this year, from Waterford's point of view, is the change of goalie. Billy Nolan now has been given a nod ahead of Sean O'Brien, who's been between the sticks since their last keeper, Stephen O'Keefe. I think it was Stephen O'Keefe. It is, stepped away from the scene. The Ballygunner goalkeeper, who's one of the great goalies as well of recent times. That's an interesting one for me, because Billy has played out the field for Waterford in Championship as well.
Yeah,
you know, so that kind of anomaly is interesting. He's a fine footballer. If he wasn't playing hurling, be on the football panel too, Billy Nolan. So he's an all-rounder, fairly good soccer player in his day as well. A family of soccer players, his brother Eddie Nolan was with Blackburn Rovers and Ireland. As well. Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent on that, but you know, so I think this Waterford team, you know, a lot of people will be expecting Clare to come away fairly handy this weekend. Don't really see it that way myself. I still think Clare will be favourites, but from Limerick's point of view, they'll be very much keeping a keen eye on Waterford this weekend, because I think maybe the biggest Waterford team, certainly Waterford hosting Limerick in Walsh Park, brings a new dimension to it.
It does. Yeah. If I was Waterford fan, I'd be frustrated with the way the fixtures. Their first two games are at home, but they're in the space of 6 days against a team that, you know, if it depends what way you spin the narrative, but yeah, it doesn't read well the way they've fallen the fixture for them. I think it's actually ideal for Limerick, and it's been beneficial this year.
It's worked out. On paper, again, Tom. On paper,
absolutely. Yeah. No, but I think Limerick will enjoy having the 13 days, whereas Waterford 6 days to go from the All-Ireland champions into the Munster champions. Not an easy task, I'll grant them. Okay, that's a great discussion there, John, on the senior hurling team. The under-20s, still in the championship, John, 4 rounds in, or well, they played 3 heading into the round 5, which is their 4th outing next week against Clare. Wednesday evening, late scores from Cork. Limerick had rallied back from, I think, 6 down, got level without getting a goal, which is credit to them. Hit some lovely scores in that second half, but unfortunately, Cork came up with, I think, was it 3 of the last 4 scores, and 2 of them in stoppage time as well, just to pip Limerick at the post, keep their championship hopes alive, and I suppose put plenty of jeopardy back in the group. So for people unaware, Tipperary have the Group 1. They've played all their games, 4 games played, 3 wins, and that lost to Limerick, but they're now in the Munster final, and they will face the winners of the semi-final, which will be 2 from 3, which is Cork, Limerick and Clare, all on 3 points heading into the final round. You would imagine Waterford, who are already eliminated, will struggle against Cork at Páirc Uí Chaoimh, so we're kind of assuming Cork will get to 5 points, and that leaves Limerick and Clare in a Shannonside derby at the TUS Gaelic Grounds next Wednesday in a straight shootout. A draw will do Limerick, but very hard to flirt with that in a game of hurling. So John, difficult result for Limerick, but you know, if they could put their positive side out, they showed great fight again, as they did in Waterford, and just came up that little bit short here to get the point that would have changed the group greatly heading into the final round.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. I didn't see the full game, but I saw a good bit of the first half, and I saw the last 10 minutes of the game. Missed the in between side, but I was keeping up to date with the game. Great to get back level, and I think did it go ahead by a point at once.
Went ahead actually, disputed point.
Yeah, and then as you said,
the last few minutes,
they got 2 of the last 3 scores, or 3 of the last 4 scores, Cork, to win the game. Yeah, I'd say Evan Loftus is scratching his head a little bit after it. Given did a great start with the goal themselves, you know, to go a few points. Conceded a goal, they'll be disappointed. I think Fiona O'Brien will be a little bit disappointed. I don't know if he was onside or not. A wet night, a bouncing ball is always tricky, but you know they're ones you'd like to get down to. I don't think it was the cornerback Timmy Wilk that got it. I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, he's some talent in fairness.
He's a big. Yeah, I saw him playing with UCC as well.
Extended panel. He was. You say cornerback. He played a lot higher up the pitch.
There's a lot of and I think I saw him with the UCC freshers as well.
Real roving role, as you'd say.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, and he scored a beautiful sideline cut as well later in the game, and was unlucky not to get a second one. But what I'm saying about Evan scratching his head with it, like you have that great start. It was the middle part of the half after Cork got that goal. They just took firm control of the game. It was easy. The ball was coming out too easy from the forwards. Cork players were getting the ball right in front of them. Easy ball, nothing the full back line or defender could do, despite the best efforts of Sean Casey and Dan Scully at times. You know, in that full back line, they were just left helpless. I thought a few, and I'm not going to harp on refereeing decisions, thought a few of the decisions from Nicky Barry, certainly towards the end of the game, were very soft in Cork's favour. I really do, and I hate saying that. And I'm not using that.
Cork scored 11 frees, scored a sideline balls, so they got 12 scores
11 from place balls.
Like 11 frees. Their goalkeeper scored an absolute boomer early in the second half, in fairness to him. Look, I was a bit I wasn't really engaging with the referee in terms of I wasn't really we were just watching on really. But I could definitely tell from where I was the Limerick management as a group and the people watching below, the Limerick faithful, they weren't happy. There was a sarcastic cheer or two when they did get a free eventually. Right. So like sometimes that can be misplaced when that happens, but you know, I think they just felt there was a couple of chops missed, there was a couple of pullbacks missed, you know, and on the flip side they were be given for Cork, you know, and that's it. And that's where I'm getting about frustration as well, not only with Limerick's, you know, maybe poor second quarter performance from Evan's point of view, but those type of things as well. They grind at teams, Tom, when you feel you're not getting the rub of the green. You only want fairness, and it kind of affects the players as well, especially younger players.
Because again, it's a perception reality thing again with referees. You believe if you're in a game, you're seeing a free given against you for something that's not being given for you. There's an element of frustration there. But then on the back of that, to see that, and similar to the Waterford game, Limerick coming right back into the game, to getting level, to going ahead, you know, they were a whisker away from beating Waterford with Robert O'Farrell's last second shot that hit the post. You know, and again, it reminds me 2 years ago when Evan was the minor manager, where they were very, very unlucky against Cork in the exact same way. You know, Cork beat them fair and square. Limerick just didn't hit the heights of the performance that he would have been wanting, and it ended up Cork finishing top of the minor hurling championship, and Limerick having to play Clare in the playoff for the second and third place that played in the Munster final. And of course, lost to Clare, who eventually went down to All Ireland honours. It's a frustrating look. It's a shootout against that Clare setup. When that game goes ahead, I think there's enough in that he'll be pleased, and the Limerick management will be pleased, and the players will be pleased with how they fought back into that game. And that wasn't easy the way they came back into it, Tom. It was really, really grinding back into the game. And that's the biggest positive you could have as a supporter, as a management team, as a player. When you have that kind of thing in a group where they're never beaten, you know, they never feel like they're out of a game, despite the 6-point deficit, I think it was at halftime. You know, they still fought back into it. So that'll give them a huge lift heading into the Clare game. But there'll be a bit of disappointment that they weren't able to finish the game off probably as well with the comeback that saw them to victory. Yeah, that's it. And I think, as Evan said, they didn't score enough when they were dominant in the first quarter. And then after, was it 18 minutes when Timmy Wilk drilled in that goal, Cork got a point. I just got a point from before that, and then they got 2 quick points. So in the space of, I think it was like
200 seconds or something. Limerick conceded 1-3.
Yeah.
You know, when in a game of fine margins,
Oh,
if you
killer,
bleed,
Tom. Yeah.
if you bleed that much that quickly, you know, it can be very costly, and it
Very
ultimately
hard to
was.
come
You know?
back. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very
yeah.
hard to come back. And the
You
fact
know,
that they
and
did come back, I'll reiterate it. The fact that they did come back after that's the kind of spell that finishes teams. There's no
Yeah.
way back. But the fact that they fought their way back,
they did.
you know, and that's testament to Evan and his backroom team for getting that. You
Mm.
know, there was no panic on the side, and there never is with Evan anyway. You know him as well as I do.
Yeah.
You know, there's a good group that have been together as a management team for a good while now, that have had these players for a long time, and you know, from 14s up. You know, I know Evan had them 1 year at minor, then was parachuted into the 20s job, but this is his first year with this group.
Yeah.
You know,
But he
full
knows
group
these guys.
again.
They all know each other well.
Oh,
Stephen Walsh is
inside
there
out,
as a
so.
selector as well. Like,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Tony
others
Power
there.
from Monaleen there as well. So
Yeah.
there's guys that have been with this group since day dot. So, you know, I've huge faith in this group of players, Sam. Actually, I've huge time for them there.
Well,
You know,
I'd agree with you there. The reason I'd say the 3 games so far, they have had adversity in the last 2
every
against
game.
Waterford.
Yeah.
And
Even go down to Tipperary, Tom.
I was just going to say, like,
Yeah.
all the talk was Asher Tipperary would steamroll Limerick, and they have Darren McCarthy this and Darren McCarthy that, and all the rest of it. But they didn't. They, as a group, they performed that night. And I don't look, for better or worse, they haven't had a player to me that you'd say is like a Darren McCarthy. That is, but they're a collective. They're a great collective together. You know, they really fight for each other, and sorry, I'm just dropping signal there. They might be hurting from that minor last in Ennis a couple of years ago, when they had actually beaten Clare on home soil in the group stages. So it doesn't, as we know, and we've always said, it doesn't directly translate to from minor to 20s, but there's a lot of the same personnel and same players. So,
and that's the challenge they have against Clare as well. You're looking at the likes of, you know, Michael Collins from Art Skull, Mark O'Brien, who's hopefully back to full fitness.
A lot of them know each other from
from Art Skull alone. And again, I'll go back, a Clare team that won All Ireland's, you know, that year, 2 years ago, you know, so that the challenge is mighty for Limerick in that game, but you know, they have to go out and do it, and thankfully it is a home game, if I'm right in saying, Tom,
yeah, you're right. Yeah, next Wednesday at 7:30.
Next Wednesday evening, and you know, and I go, like, we're a week out now, and there might be another podcast before that. All going well next week, like, but you would like to throw it out there with like, get behind these group of lads. Like, it's not all about the senior team, Tom. You know, the minor team as well, like, who are out tonight. You'd love to see a big crowd in the Gaelic grounds. I know a lot of these games were played in Rathkeale, in McNeville Park last year, you know, which did bring more crowds, because it was easier for people that side of the county to get to, rather than coming all the way into town on a Friday evening, or you know what I'm getting. You'd love to see a big crowd at these games, because a lot of the teams coming have big attendances travelling. You know, it's not just family and friends coming. Cork, there's huge momentum around Cork at the moment. You know, and I'm sure you saw, I certainly came across on TV when I was watching it, you know, anytime there was a Cork score, there was a fair amount of noise being made, you know, and it was the same with the minor a few weeks. Yeah, it was the same with the minor team a few weeks ago as well. Like, so,
yeah.
You know, so you'd love to see that translate with Limerick as well, but hopefully there'll be a big crowd starting with the minors tonight.
Yeah. So you mentioned the minors tonight. Now, I wouldn't say this is a dead rubber, but Limerick have their business done, from what I can tell anyway. This is a clash with Clare this evening, 7 p.m. Friday evening. For anyone listening, maybe over the weekend, game has come and gone. 7 p.m. start at the Gaelic grounds. Limerick winning the last day by a single point against Tipperary in Semple Stadium, and it was, I think, the bench that helped them over the line there. Killian Begley, among others, contributing off the bench. So what it means is Limerick, this is Limerick's final game. They're idle in round 5. They can get to 4 points. That won't be enough for a Munster final. So the format here is the top 2 will play in a Munster final. At the moment, that's Cork and Waterford, and Clare and Limerick are occupying 3rd and 4th, which will go to the All-Ireland series. So while I shouldn't say dead rubber, it's an important game for all concerned.
Okay,
but
finish the 3rd and 4th,
yeah, that's it. It's about who to finish the 3rd and 4th, and I think for Limerick, it's probably, they want to reiterate the messages that have served them well against Tipperary. They want to see, can they get another good performance. They've had good performances. I think they did a good 30-35 minutes against Waterford, did a good 40-45 minutes against Cork, didn't get the results, and now can they put in a 60-minute performance, get a result, and that will have the confidence brimming. And we know, you know, these are very, very young players, So confidence can be very important on the big day, and heading into an All-Ireland series, that's what Limerick are looking at here this evening.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much confirmed, Tom. That's I was talking to a member of the management team earlier today about it. Just on that, I think this was only clarified a couple of weeks ago to the respective counties, which is fairly poor form from the powers that be. I just want that.
Was in the exact format was only
Yeah,
confirmed. Was it?
yeah,
Oh,
they weren't aware because
I probably blindly assumed it was the same as last year, and it is now. I
well,
think, isn't it?
but going back 2 years, we're talking about that minor a couple of minutes ago with regard to the 20s, where the top three were the ones that
stayed in.
The top two went through, and third place. Well, the top one went through to the Munster final. Team that finished top of the group. The second and third played off, and that's a just anomaly there this year. I think it's a good idea because the more games these lads play, the better. I've made that argument here.
Whatever U20s under 17 has to be a development age group, and
that was the whole point of bringing it from 18s back to 17s. Dan, was to make sure it stayed at that competitive level. Yes, but it's all about development, and that's the way it has to be. Going back to the game itself tonight, it's Limerick and Clare. That there isn't going to be any love lost in that. Limerick, as you said, will have to take huge confidence from what they produce. When the chips are really down against Tipperary, Tom, they turned up. I know they were very, very disappointed with that second half performance against Waterford. Didn't show up where they did against Cork in a major way in that game. So to turn that round against Tipperary, a fancy Tipperary side who've had a bad year at minor level, like they've lost every game so far. That
means they're out. They're out of it. That was Limerick 12 months ago. They were done with a game to go. Yeah.
So you mentioned a bench like Rian Horgan starting in. He got the goal against Tipperary, named to start anyway. Killian Begley, who had a tough couple of games against Cork and Waterford and was dropped for that Tipperary game, and that's tough going, Tom, at that age. He's a big talented lad, Killian, of course, son of former Limerick great Brian Begley as well. So that
goal looked very familiar now. Don't have
it looked like we'd seen that played back before. But he's a big talent, Tom, Killian. And there's big talent. There's talent all over this team as well. So I think that they've moved Danny Sheehan back from wing forward to wing back for that game. That was a huge thing because Danny Sheehan had been probably their main go-to guy in the forwards, in the half forward line for the first two games. That could be a mark of genius bringing him back. They've switched the team around little bits, different players in different positions. The Hanleys have swapped positions. There's Michael Hanley, I think, gone to centre back. I think Rory's gone to centre forward. So just little things around that, as well. But yeah, look, again, it's very hard to know at 17's level what level of performance. Cork have been the marquee team. I know that a huge win against Clare last week. Again with Cormac Dean, again son of former Cork great Joe Dean, doing the damage there for them. So it's hard to know what Clare team are coming to Limerick this evening as well. So from Limerick's point of view, if they can follow up that performance against Tipperary with something similar against Clare, they'll be in good state, and that's one thing we can say for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's a 7 p.m. start this Friday evening. That's April 25th for Limerick and Clare. So as I said, Limerick unfortunately will not be able to reach the top two, but would love to finish with two victories from two to see out the 4 games. The preliminary, I can never say that word, quarterfinals provisionally fixed for the 24th of May. So I think it'd be Leinster opposition crossing over,
third and fourth,
and then into the All-Ireland quarterfinals effectively in June. So look, we'll keep an eye on that as we know the pairings. Just to mention as well, in terms of All-Ireland series football, the Limerick under-20s footballers will know their opposition next Tuesday. The Ulster B final takes place next Tuesday. So Limerick, as being Munster B champions at the under-20s level, await their opposition in that one. So we'll have more on that next week's podcast. Okay, so that's the hurling, John. I suppose we should move our way around the houses now, as we tend to do. I'm trying to think what was next on my little schedule we had here this afternoon.
In 2 seconds.
Camogie. Yeah, we'll go to Camogie. We'll stay on the small ball. I think is a good place to go. I was in Thurles, you were there as well, John. Difficult afternoon for the Limerick Camogie side. I don't think we expected it to be an easy one against Tipperary. It's a curtain raiser to the senior hurling clash, as many people will know. 5 goals for the Premier, including 1 in the first minute, which really seemed to set Limerick back. But disappointing, but maybe not a surprise. This is very, very much a Limerick panel in transition. I think that's fair to say.
100%, Tom. Yeah, it is. And I was only in for the second half. You were there for the full. The game was over at half time. With the concession of the 4 goals, I think it was at half time, was it?
Three, yeah. It was
3
a
goals,
3, top of my head, was a 3-6 at halftime or
something like that. Yeah, it was 9 points anyway, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, and the bits I saw of the game in the second half, there was only one team in it, in fairness. To Tipperary, they were a level above, and I think Joe was fairly honest in his appraisal of the game post-match as well, Joe Quaid. From Limerick's point of view, Tom, it's very much heading towards championship in a few weeks' time, and that's where their full focus is. We were talking before we came on air today about the difficulties they're going to have with the fixtures of Cork. Away to Cork first up, as you know, they're All-Ireland champions the last 2 years. It doesn't get much harder than that. You know, they've Tipperary again in there. They have games against Clare and Wexford as well. I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah, sorry, I've just misplaced them there, but they're
okay. Yeah, they're the game. But I think the Clare and Wexford games will be the ones Limerick will be really, really honing in on. The likelihood of them beating Cork, just to be fair, isn't there. And Tipperary probably, from what we saw the other day, isn't going to happen either. So that's the focus for a very much, Tom, you've hit the nail on the head. A very much development Limerick team. They started again 2 years ago when Joe and his backroom team came in, you know, for his second stint as Limerick manager. You know, there's still remaining players from the previous regimes, of course, but they've brought in a whole host of younger players. And they're about a year away, Tom, from bringing in a lot of that minor team and a lot of that very successful under-16 teams.
Yeah, so some of them even a couple of years away in terms of physical development.
There are, you know. So, but even from the now under-23 team as well, of course, that has replaced the junior championship. You know, they're a year away from that as well. So, you know, and that whole under-23 team is the development team as well. So, I mean, the positivity for Limerick Camogie is what has come through in underage from that minor team that Paul Neenan brought to an All-Ireland. It was a B final, but still an All-Ireland final. And they were the last tantrum. Of course, Paul Neenan now part of the coaching team within the senior set up as a link to that minor team that came through. So there's a good few of them in and around the panel. There's players coming through from that 16, the glorious 16 Munster A winning teams. In the past couple of seasons. So you know, there are building blocks there very much. For this year, Tom, they're not there fully. Of course, like if you're looking at that game, we wanted to talk about Cueva Costello playing as a sweeper, as the extra player back there. That actually happened in the league as well. In their last game against Westmeath, Cueva was operating that role. And I think the whole reasoning behind is get Cueva on the ball as much as possible. Yeah, you know, to deliver a good ball into the forwards and then go from there.
They're trying to congest it at the back as well because they probably don't have. They don't have that experience. And
Cueva's level of talent, Tom. You know, I'm not just honing on Cueva. There's plenty of other talent in that Limerick team, but she's the marquee player in the team, the one that scores most in it. So are you taking her away from her scoring ability? But someone has to get the ball to the forwards too, and I think that's the thinking behind. The quarterback position, as it's known as. So that's the reasoning behind that. So from Limerick's point of view, Tom, they're not going to be expecting to beat Tipperary. They're not going to be expecting to beat Cork. You know, very much for this year and maybe next year as well. It's about staying senior. And look, you can mask that as much as you want. You can say we're trying to do this and trying to do that. That's the reality that's in front of Joe Quaid this year, and like it was last year. You know, and like it will probably be next year. So. Until Limerick can get all these talented players through, not all of them will come through. That's the nature of the beast. But you know they won't be at the top end. They are trending though, Tom, in the right direction. That's what we've wanted to see for Limerick Camogie in the last number of years. There's a clear plan there. There's a plan with the 23s. There's a plan from the 16s up, which is fantastic to see. And there's an abundance of talent coming through, and that can only be positive for Limerick Camogie. Looking ahead to the championship, we've already discussed, but. You know, the game against Tip, the result wasn't a surprise.
No, it wasn't. And I suppose I mentioned the goal in the first minute, Karen Kennedy, I think, cutting in off the end line, a bit like Shane O'Brien in her own way. Limerick probably just wanted to try and stay a little bit longer in the contest than they did. You know, they conceded 2 goals early on. But look, they battled gamely. I think Laura Southern in attack, the limited ball she did get, I think she got 2 from play. And, you know, looked...
Had a very good league. Yeah,
you know, looked a real... You know, when maybe she plays against teams where Limerick are we'll say closer to 50-50 against. I think she could really
I'll
make hay.
give you an example. That the game against Westmeath in their final league game, where Limerick won very, very comfortably. Laura Southern was outstanding in attack the same day. A threat for goals, a threat for points, and it is a forward that Limerick can build around in the years to come. Ourselves, the likes of Donna Kenny coming through, are those type of forwards, Tom, that turn and go for goal, get fouled, or they score goals. And that goals win matches. Tom, you hit the nail on the head with this one. That goal, concession of goal in the first minute, put Limerick on the back foot immediately, and Tip only thrived on that from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the word I used with Matt, it's gone back a year or more ago, about the ladies' football was continuity. And you mentioned all that, the bright 16s, the minors, the 23s now as well, and the younger players that are on the senior panel. You want continuity, and if I always reiterate this point to people who maybe don't pay that much attention to the ladies' side of Gaelic games. It's a lot harder to keep the ladies involved because there isn't those supports presently anyway to keep them. So it's no surprise when you maybe don't have success at senior intercounty level, the players will transition a lot quicker. Some of those players, like Cueva Costello, Sophie O'Callaghan, have probably a decade or more done, and Maria Bryan and a few more. But it's no surprise when you see 15 players gone off the panel, another 15 in, and it could be the same again next year. Now the hope is obviously that it isn't, but the transition is much greater. And when you're not successful in any walk of life, any sport, it's it can happen. That's maybe why in camogie the rich get richer in terms of Cork and Galway and Kilkenny. It's a lot easier for them to keep players interested when they're at the real top end of it. But anyway, look, that's it. They are back in action in a month's time. I think it's 24th of June away to 24th of May, I should say. Sorry, 24th of May. Saturday afternoon away to Cork in round 1. So nice easy one, as I think Joe Quaid joked. It was a nice easy one to start in Castle Road, or no, it could be Parky Queeve actually for that one, in the Munster, or the All-Ireland series I should say. Okay, staying on Munster Championship, John will move to the Senior B Championship, and I know Matt has mentioned this to listeners in the last few weeks. The Senior B Ladies Football Championship, that is. Limerick were winners of it last season. There was a 3-team competition involving Cork and Kerry's development teams, but this year we're up to 4 with Clare, who applied their trade at intermediate level in the competition, and Limerick will travel to them this Sunday. Saturday, tomorrow afternoon, Saturday. I get my days mixed up. 2 p.m. in Clare Abbey for the Limerick side. John, it's not a competition that Limerick are strangers to. As I said, it's not a competition that maybe they need to win. They won it last year. It's a competition that they will certainly try and use as a springboard for what's to come in the summer in terms of the Junior All-Ireland series, because as we know, Limerick are desperate to get out of that Junior Championship, and hopefully they can use the 3 games in this and maybe a potential final to get their panel up to scratch for what's to come in the All-Ireland series.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. Yeah, it was a springboard for a good crack at the Junior Championship last year, having won it. I know Sean Kiley and Mike Quilligan were very grateful to have that level of game heading into the championship, and they'll be looking for something similar again. It's been a very positive year so far, a very, very credible performance in Division 3 of the league this year for Limerick, comfortably, and the objective at the start of the year was staying up. They did that very, very comfortably. Some excellent performances. Certainly the game against Carlow, which was one I was at, a Friday night game out in Moylish and to Moylish, Friday evening game where they beat a Carlow team that they've had differing results over last year in particular as well, but themselves and Carlow, they got promoted last year. Carlow beat them in the league final, so it was nice to get one up on them. But yeah, this competition, Tom, heading into the championship, use the words, they're desperate to get up to the intermediate.
I won't sugarcoat it.
No. There's no point in sugarcoating it because it's the truth. What I've seen from Limerick this year so far in the 2 or 3 games I've been at and I've seen, they're moving the ball a lot quicker and they have a focal point and a full forward. Maybe they didn't have up to now in Rebecca DeLee. Rebecca has been a huge addition to the group of players. Again, talking about the camogie players coming through, there's a bit of youth in that team as well as come in this year so far in the league, and they have massive competition for places every game, which is all a management team wants. And I know Mike Quilligan and Sean Kiley have definitely been delighted from what they've seen from the players from the girls in the league thus far, or in the league as a whole. So yeah, they can use this in two ways, Tom. They can use this as a developmental thing, which they did a bit of as well last year, as well as going on to win it, the competition. They gave players their head in this as well in preparation. I think the league is over now, and from a mentality point of view, and the second that league was over, it was meant to turn in attention to championship, a line drawn under the sand in what was a positive league campaign, and then building into championship. And we know, look, it's a bear pit of a junior ladies football championship. It really, really is. It's, the Limerick and Fermanagh alternate years in the semi-finals are beating each other more often than not. It goes one way one year and 1 year the next. So I think Limerick have a great chance this year. I think they may have, the best chance they've had probably since they won it in 2018, and obviously lost the final to Down a couple of years ago. But I still think they weren't ready to go up then. But I think now, looking at what I've seen this year and the improvements they've made this year, being at the standard they were in Division 3 of the league, and that kind of equates with intermediate as well, Tom. Most of the teams in that are playing in the intermediate championship, and Limerick more than held their own in that competition. So I think the sky's the limit. Again, I've used that phrase a couple of times today, but I think they'll be quietly confident going into this competition, use it whatever way they want, but going into the junior championship, where again we're probably a month away from starting or close to it, 5-6 weeks. I don't have the dates to hand exactly now, but I think they're in a good nick, and certainly from what I saw in the league. But they'll be looking to use this as another starting point for their season heading into championship.
Yeah. Now I did say the game was tomorrow, and just sorry, viewers might have spotted me looking around in the background. I did say it was also with Clare Abbey, and this is sometimes the problem with Munster LGFA. I have now, has been relayed to me here as we're chatting, John. It's on Sunday at 2 p.m. in Cusack Park. So
there you go.
What I will say is, do not hold me responsible if you miss the match by a day. If you miss the match by a day or go to the wrong venue, it's not my fault. I would ask someone to check with Limerick ladies football. In fairness, I haven't been in touch with them this week. In fairness, they're normally good to publicise the game. So I'm a little bit in the dark with that. So it's on at 2 p.m. anyway, whether it's Saturday or Sunday, and where it's on in Clare, I'm not sure. But Limerick are definitely away to Clare.
We'll go to Cusack Park on Sunday for the moment, and if it's wrong, it's wrong. But no, look, this is it'll be on the social media pages of Limerick ladies football, that's for sure. Anyway. Yeah. And this, just on paper anyway, this should be the toughest test in the group of 4, John, because first of all, Division 2, aren't they, Clare?
Yeah, Division 2 league, intermediate and championship. So and it's Cork and Kerry's kind of development or kind of younger teams. So this should be the tough one, and it's away from home as well, as we're discussing there. So look,
they're the type of tests you want, Tom, heading into championship. That's you mentioned where you want to be.
You mentioned the playing in Division 3, and I know Matt was very, I suppose, he was a little bit negative that they didn't get more points in the league, but they were very competitive in every game. You have to look at that as a positive, because
they were going into the last game, Tom, with a chance of reaching, the semi-finals. So again, a game in hand, I know, but so yeah, I know what Matt's saying. We were at the first game of the year against Down. I think it was Down. And then we were in a winning position. And again, they were very disappointed not to win. They really just fell away in the early stage of the second half, and stayed competitive in the game and nearly brought it back. There was another few minutes left in the game. We could have got a result out of it. So I understand what he's saying, but Tom, I'd look at that as a positive as well. In the fact that Limerick were so competitive in that league, the rim with one game to go, the rim with an outside chance of reaching the semi-finals. I think they drew that game at least again. Or was there 1 point loss? I'm not.
They lost their last game. I think they lost their last 2 games early. If I'm struggling now to remember exactly, but I'd be very positive about the league, because stepping up that division, Limerick historically, the only other time they were up there, it did not go well, and get in there, get amongst it, get the results against intermediate teams, and they didn't need to be hunting down promotion. It would be nice, of course, but
no.
Let's build it slowly in terms of the league. Go up a step, hold your ground, and try and get up again. So maybe 2026 is the year to really go after that league. If they indeed have, can keep it all together in terms of this year in the championship. So, okay, I think, John, that covers us off. We said 60 minutes as usual. We go well over and above and beyond that. So, but yeah,
Munster 17s, the Munster Football Championship under
sorry,
17s.
yes, yes,
The last
apologies,
one.
that slipped my mind. Yeah, Monday evening, very important game for the Limerick Miners. This is the male side of the house we're jumping back to now. Round 3 in the phase 1 of the Munster Minor Football Championship. Well spotted, John. Omitted from my my memory here. A victory over Waterford should be enough, I'd say, to see them progress. They had a great win last time out against Tipperary. I was at it 214 to 112 in McNeville Park, having lost out by 8 points to Clare the first day out. So what that means is after 2 games played, Clare have 2 wins from 2. Limerick a win and a loss. Tipperary a win and a loss. Crucially though, Limerick now with the head-to-head over Tipperary, and at Waterford 0 from 2. So if the trends continue, you think Limerick should have enough for Waterford, who've averaged, I suppose, 11 point defeats in their 2 games. That'll bring Limerick to 4. Clare on 4, and then Tipperary, and who are facing Clare, obviously will look to get to 4 as well. If that happens, well, we might need the abacus or whatever. Limerick not best placed at the moment, but again,
I leave that to you and Matt.
yeah. But what I will say is Limerick not best placed in that scenario. But what they need to do, John, is simple: win the game against Waterford and see what happens. It's top 2 will play in a phase 1 final, so that's the target for Limerick. And look, last year didn't go well for Limerick, but this is basically bar Leon Curtin. It's a completely new group. They probably surprised us the last time after the loss to Clare. They've great bounce back ability. Scored 2-8 from the throw in, 2-8 to no score in McNeville Park. A couple of 2-pointers, some brilliant goals. So we should be positive, I think, heading into this clash with Waterford side yet to pick up a result.
No, absolutely, Tom. Yeah, and again, the work that's been done, again, it's the unheralded work at times that the football academies do in producing players. We've seen a benefit from Limerick's senior point of view this year, in particular, more than other years. The amount of players that have come through those academies, making the lift and making the step up to senior intercounty football, ending up in Croke Park in a league final, and obviously looking forward to the Tailteann Cup again. But you hit the nail on the head again there, Tom. Keep it as simple as possible. Win the game on Monday, and you're guaranteed your spot in that phase 1 final. And it's last year didn't go well, but was it 2 years ago where Limerick won that phase 1 competition, to bring silverware for the first time since the 1960s at minor grades. So that shows how important this thing is for the likes of Limerick, Tip, Clare, and Waterford, obviously on 0 points. So, but if they beat Waterford, Tom, very much guaranteed. So, and that would be huge to get to another final like that. It is important at that grade to be playing again. Like we said with the 17 hurlers, the more games, the better for development point of view at this age, and getting to a final of that ilk could only be positive as well.
Yeah, good. Now I will correct you there and say a win won't guarantee it, but
effectively,
it should. Yeah, it should be enough. Now there's a scenario where they all finish on 4 points.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But from what I saw Tip the last day, I wouldn't be too confident that Tipperary will get a victory against Clare. But look, time will tell, and not impossible. But Limerick,
you can only look after what you do yourself.
Yeah, Limerick win their game, and ask questions later is probably the easiest scenario. And I think that victory, as we said about the minor hurlers, that victory the last day out should give them a certain amount of confidence, certain amount of belief, and against the Waterford team that are already, I suppose, out of the championship really. So that plays. Do you think that should play into their hands anyway? At the McNeville Park, which is where it's fixed at the moment anyway. So that's Monday evening at 7 p.m. start. For I think just double check the time, actually 7 p.m. start, and I have confirmation that the ladies football play on Sunday in Clare Abbey, not Cusack Park. So a little bit of confusion there, but thankfully it looks like all has been ironed out. So anyway, back to the minor footballer, 7 p.m. in McNeville Park in Rathkeale. Phase 1 final to come then, which would be on the 5th of May, and after that then you're into Munster semi-final territory. So against Cork or Clare, or Cork or Kerry, I should say. So a nice little prize, regardless of how you get on in that phase 1 final. So a nice prize for winning this game potentially on Monday. you get 2 more days out, and I think then you'll be guaranteed to be in the All-Ireland B series as well. There's A, B, and C at minor football level. So Limerick looking at least have C in the bag. Win here, they should have B in the bag, and obviously a chance at silver against potentially Clare. So let's keep the fingers crossed for Monday evening. So right, apologies, the minors nearly slipped my head. It's just sneaking in there on a Monday evening. John, I think that's all for us on Treaty Talk. You'll be back. I'm sure, with us again. We'll see. Can we get Matt Sub back in? I know
Matt comes back for the big games at the next weekend. That's the right time.
Great time in the league, and
he took a week off. He took a week off. So.
A bit like some of those Limerick hurlers, they had great time in the league, and then they were suddenly benched.
I'm rolled out for championship time. That's my spot, and I'm happy with it.
Like a fine wine, right, lads? Folks, thanks a million, and apologies we're a little bit late to this podcast this week, but that's the nature of it at the moment. Very, very busy during the week with so many games and ongoings around the county and beyond. Okay, thanks a million.